Well, I got in a car accident. I got hit head on by a drunk driver
Oh, wow.
who was outrunning the police on the opposite side of the highway. That was
Mhm.
like a big universal kind of wake up call for me, but I wasn't aware of it at the time. A spiritual awakening is something you have to do it on your own. And luckily, there are people that can help support that have been through it, if you find the right people.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of Soul Inspired. Today I have Ashley Donegan with us. She has had a, I would say, a near-death like experience where she's had an experience. I haven't dug in yet, but the remembrance isn't there, but the effects are there from what I've been told. And it kind of led to a spiritual awakening. So we're going to chat with her. But thanks so much, Ashley, for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
I'm wondering when your this experience happened, and if you can give me a brief overview of who Ashley was, who little Ashley was growing up, a little bit about yourself, up until the moment of when this happened. Would I be able to get a little info on that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've always been kind of a shy, quiet kid, but this happened when I was 21. So this was in 2003. So I wasn't a kid, but compared to now, I was a kid in your 20s. But so yeah, I at that time, looking back now, at the time I didn't realize it, but I was sort of lost, um, and kind of living for who I thought other people thought I should be, not really living for myself. But of course, at that time, you don't know it, and you're think you know everything, and so I would say that's where I was when I was about 21. Both my parents grew up religious, but different, very different religions. And then when they had children, they kind of veered away from their religions, for different reasons. So I did not grow up religious at all. Um, Never really went to church, nothing like that. My parents always just raised us to be kind, to be nice to others, treat others as you want to be treated, but we never had a religion, so to speak.
Okay, so pretty open. Mine was kind of like that too. My dad was Catholic. His family was Catholic, but my mom, she was just kind of like, whatever you choose you want to be someday, you do that. I think if she were to have chosen something, it would have been like Buddhist or something. She kind of found that side a little bit more interesting. But no, my Ukrainian side was like Catholic, like they were like religious. So, but I didn't really grow up in too much of that. But so you sound like
Hmm.
you were just kind of open to whatever. And and so you said in your early 20s this event happened or whatever it was. You want to share a little bit of what happened then?
Sure. Yeah, I went to a party where I worked, like my coworker had a party and I went with my sister, and luckily we drove separately, but I was driving home. I think it was around 1:30 in the morning. And like I said, I don't remember past a certain point. All I know is I got in a car accident. I got hit head on by a drunk driver
Oh, wow.
who was outrunning the police on the opposite side of the highway. And but I have no memory past a certain point and up to like maybe 3 weeks later. Um, so I know from like court documents and the life flight, the paramedics, their reports and having to go to court and my parents and all those people telling me what happened, but I have no memory of it whatsoever. So
Wow. So you were you driving when this happened?
I was driving the vehicle. Luckily, like I said, my sister didn't ride with me, or she definitely would have been killed. I actually have a picture. I could do a screen share of my vehicle, the way it looked, if you wanted to see. But there's no way I should have survived it, honestly, the way that it happened. But yes, I was driving the car, and like I said, the gentleman was at a bar, a gentleman's club, and he pulled on the wrong side of the highway and hit me head on.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, what I'll end up doing is just I'll get the picture from you. You could send it, and what I'll do is I'll have it shown during the show. That's not a problem at
Oh,
all.
okay.
But I mean, even the audience listening, I'm sure they can imagine if you get hit head on and you're traveling and um he was drunk. So
Yes.
ran into you and then you said your memory was gone for how long? When were you in a coma?
All I remember is I stopped at a stoplight and then I don't remember, it was maybe more like half a mile. I don't remember anything from past that stoplight. Like I don't remember the car coming towards me or anything like that. And then I barely remember the hospital, maybe just like seeing my parents there and everything. But for a 3 week period, it's like I was in a coma or something
Wow. So it's like a
after the accident.
so your memory got completely like jumbled up during those 3 weeks after the
Yeah, I had
accident.
pretty bad head trauma, and that's common, like when you have head trauma. So
Hmm. When the memory started coming back on, was it like a flood of memory coming back and you'd recognize people again, or do you remember any of this or?
no, I mean, the initial reports and the paramedics and stuff. When I read back, it said they asked me my name. I didn't know my own name. I asked for my parents. I didn't know my parents' names.
Wow.
But but like I said, I don't remember any of that. And then when I was in the hospital, I recognized them. And but I don't really remember have a lot of memories of it. But I know that they were there and they were my family, and so it all came back to me pretty quickly. But I don't like have a memory of physically seeing myself in the hospital or anything like that.
So you had this accident, you had the memory loss, which is normal with head trauma, like you said, and then your earthbound memory started coming back online. You started kind of recovering, so that's good. I mean, that's you're probably very thankful for that. I'm sure. I'm sure if once I see the picture too, I'll probably be shocked by it. I've had a few people who've had some accidents, and I look at the car and I go, I don't know how people walk away sometimes from these things, and that's a miracle in itself, right? So,
Right.
and
Yeah.
now when you came to, was that when you started noticing changes from a spiritual place, or did that happen a little bit later on?
Oh gosh. Well, I would say that's a tough one just because my memory is fuzzy about it, but I wouldn't say it was instant just because I had so much trauma. It wasn't like like you hear people with near death experiences say they have a peaceful, loving feeling. I had trauma. I had to deal with medical bills. I had to go to court. I had
Hmm.
like all these, physical things I had to deal with and stress. And I had just bought a new home at 21 years old. So I had like a mortgage. And so I had to deal with all those things. So that spiritual side, I feel like I was being nudged, but I wasn't really getting it. That was
Hmm.
like a big universal kind of wake up call for me, but I wasn't aware of it at the time. I was stressed out, I was, hurting, and but that's the universe's way of trying to struggle, is try to get you to, you know, heal and wake up. But so I
Yeah.
wouldn't say immediate, no. It was years of time and more stuff came and more stuff and more stuff, but no, what's not immediate.
That's really interesting because I really do like I have these different conversations with people and I do find that the ego, not like the ego self as well can be a distraction. And then on top of it, the stresses of life, everything that we think is, it's funny because all the things you just mentioned, all the stresses, what's I find fascinating all the time is that we created all that. Like man created you needing a mortgage. Man created you needing to make sure your job was still good or like these are all things that this wasn't something that was set down heavenly to us. It was like that's our existence. We've created that over our, just evolving, I guess. So it's interesting how all of that was distracting you. And then at some point you started noticing maybe some things. So would you say it was a couple of years before you started to kind of like feel a little bit different about things?
Yeah, I would say it was a evolution of sorts over several years. That I'm stubborn, I'm very hard-headed, and I'm also like a slow learner. It takes a lot for me to change. So I had several more traumatic things happen before I was like, oh, this is all happening because of my own choices, because of how I
Mm.
am inside, because of how I feel and how, what I'm putting out into the world. That took me a long time to get um, that awareness. So it was just a slow progression over years, I would say, not one single thing, but multiple things.
So it
But
sounds
that
like
was really the beginning.
you were getting multiple
Yeah,
wake up calls. Is that
I would, yeah, the universe tried.
yeah, so it's like, hey, wake up. that didn't work. Okay, let's try it again. Maybe a little less intense, but um, they were still trying to get your attention because your attention was
Yes.
elsewhere. Okay.
Yes.
So let's lead into when things started to shift. Okay.
Okay.
So if we look at you're getting all these different things coming up in your life that are hard to deal with, hardships and universe likely trying to wake you up. When did that shift? I'm wondering how long did it take? Were you in your late 20s by this time, or when did that start to happen?
Yes, I would say my late 20s. I started where I worked at I connected with a lot of people that were in the spiritual, metaphysical, you know, area. And I started kind of hearing things, and I would get books, and I would watch things online, and I would go to classes, and I would go to different healing, modalities, and just meet all kinds of people. And that's when I started learning. And yeah, that I would say my late 20s is when that really started to sort of set in more.
So you started looking into wanting to use healing modalities, like work with people with healing?
Yeah, and like I would go get Reiki. I was attuned to Reiki myself. I don't do it to other people really, but things like that. Shamanic journey, crystals, and
Hmm.
like anything that you can think of, I've probably done it. Meditations, I've been to counseling. I've done crystal bowl sound baths. I've done anything you can think of. I have probably done it.
What do you think led you into doing that? What was it the experience where you almost died that did it, or was it this continuous wake up call kind of nudging that just kind of got you to a point where you're like, okay, I gotta shift this and try to start doing things. Like I'm just curious why you went that direction.
I would say both. I would say both. That is what kind of led me to it. And then once you experience kind of the um the peace of meditation and getting like I've heard you say in your previous podcast, people that have near death experiences, they get a sense of peace and love and what it's like to be, on the other side, or however you want to call it. So in meditation, you can sort of feel those things, and through these different healing modalities, you can sort of feel a little piece of that. And so, why wouldn't I want to do that? And if I can get a little bit of peace in my life and try to heal myself, I mean, then I feel like it's better for everybody, the
Hmm.
collective. If we're healed, like my daughter can be better off, and I won't pass down things negatively towards her that maybe I learned in my childhood or, generations past. And so just a real healing journey for, everything. But yes, my car accident and the other traumas, but then also, like I've heard you say, you just always have had this curiosity of this kind of thing, and so have I. And so I'm
Hmm.
curious, I want to learn, I want to maybe help others if I can, but also heal myself.
Right. Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things I get from the people who have had these actual experiences is if I say to them, what's the first thing someone could start doing? It's meditation comes up a lot. And I mean, I've said this millions of times now that music is my meditation because it's kind of the place that gets me grounded. But I understand the whole idea around meditation too because I've done it. I've had a few mo moments where I was in that space and was like blown away by it. Same with like chanting, form of kirtan and music, meditative kind of I kind of start to kind of like zone out. So I know the feeling that
Mhm.
you're talking about. So you've been you've been curious then your whole life because I think I missed out about have about that. So even when you were young 20s and you had that accident, you had a curiosity about life or beyond life, or were you really stuck in ego life? Like this is my life. I'm
I,
partying, I'm doing
I
my
would,
thing. Like,
yeah, I would say both. I would say both because I thought I was supposed to be one way. I was supposed to do this. People thought of me like this. But then I always, in the back of my mind, have been curious about all kinds of things because I feel like it was almost a gift that I wasn't taught a certain religion, which I
mhm.
know some people might look frown upon that. But for me, I feel like it was a gift my parents gave me because I wasn't set to one thing. Like a lot of people are born in a family and they're taught that religion, and that's the only way that they see the rest of their life, which is fine. And I'm not, knocking that for anybody if that's what works for them. But for me, it let me think a lot of different things. Like one thing isn't just right. And so you have to find what's good for you. And so how can you not know that if you don't try different things or learn about different things or experience different things? I mean, so it was almost a gift to me that I wasn't, I don't want to say brainwashed because that's kind of a harsh word, but I feel like that's what a lot of people are. They're just taught one thing and that's what they think. So
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to think for myself and always have a curious mind. And so I would say both. But then also part of me was, I got to be like this and do this and do this. But then that the universe with my accident and all the trauma that I've had is trying to wake me up and break me from that, is how I see it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, and you're totally right. I've been talking to so many people about I call it kind of like floating through life. You're just like a floater. You're just kind of like doing the typical thing, right? Wake up, eat, work, eat, go home, watch a football game, go to sleep, wake up, and you just kind of do this over and over. And I believe most people at some point in their life, could be when they're 20, it could be when they're 80, have this moment of clarity of, okay, what else? I had that happen in my late teens, and it was horrible because I developed terrible anxiety around death, terrible anxiety. But I look at it now as a blessing because it 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 allowed me to start asking questions, instead of just being kind of shot down the same, okay, here I go. This is what I do. I'd always question why? What's the point? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And
Yeah.
it sounds like you were kind of going through that in your 20, like after this accident, after these few awakenings, you're starting to ask questions, wanting to kind of really dig a little deeper into who you are. And that's probably why you got into the healing side of things, started kind of going down that
Yes.
road. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you notice anything? Because you said that during the accident, there was no memory of anything. Do you feel like anything happened during that time, or do you feel like you didn't, you actually didn't cross or have any close call with death?
I mean, that I can't answer. All I know is like looking at the car and looking at the police report and going to court and hearing all the accounts of it and seeing like my parents and everything. There had to be some kind of like angel or guide or something like protecting me during that time, is all I know, because I didn't have a broken bone. I had one cut on my leg, but I didn't even need stitches. I mean, yes, I had head trauma, I had bruising all over, I chipped my teeth, but really, like, in the whole scheme of things, I should have died. I didn't. And I could have been, I mean, I could have been paralyzed. I could be so, so far off worse than what it was. Some
Mhm.
kind of divine intervention had to be there. I know that for a fact. But
Right.
I can't recall anything. I didn't feel anything. It's like they wiped my memory totally. I have no idea.
And there could be a reason for that. It could be that maybe you weren't supposed to see how, like, so many people tell me how amazing it is over there and everything, but we still got to do this. We're still here. We're here to do something. And maybe some of us are a little more sensitive to that. I've always said that. I'm like, I don't think I'd be good at seeing what's over there. I like, I think I'm good just to stay here, stay grounded. We
hmm
can't predict what happens in life, but I don't think I'd want to see that because it'd probably be very difficult to come back and deal with some of the things we deal with here, and it's not that life is terrible. It's just, we all know it's not always the easiest place to be
No.
existing. So, yeah.
No, yeah, and I actually tried to get hypnotized to have the memory come back, and the practitioner wouldn't do it. She's like, "No, there's a reason your brain is protecting you," and she would not do it.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, I've tried to do every other kind of thing to remember, and it has not come back. So there must be a reason why I'm not supposed to. But for me, like it's very hard for me to get over it because like I couldn't remember. And I'm very analytical, or I'm trying to not be as much. I'm trying to go to more to my intuition, but I
Mhm.
would have to be like, why did this happen? How did this happen? Because I couldn't even see, like, did I veer off on the road? Like, was he coming straight at me? Like, why didn't I turn, or why? And it was really hard for me to accept it and get over it because I couldn't see it. So like for closure, I wanted to be able to remember. because it was very strange to go to court and everything and face them in, and I had to like give a statement, but I couldn't remember it. So that's like really weird and hard to do, but I mean, I did it. But
Wow.
so yeah, because I do have a curious mind and I want to know why and how and where and what it looks like and everything, but I just can't. So I've had to accept that and just move on. But
It could be
that's been a
why,
long time ago now. So
yeah, but it could be also why you have the curiosities and the curiosity in the end in the near-death experience. The people who've had near-death experiences and actually can recall the memories that came back with them, right? Because might, verify some things that may have happened, may or may not, right? You may not have actually crossed. Um, But then there are other people who go their whole life. They had something happen when they were 8 years old and they're now 70, and all of a sudden it just comes flooding in and the memory hits. I've talked to people like that. And you go,
mhm,
why weren't they allowed to know it for 55 years or whatever it was? It's like, why? But we don't really know the answers to that. Sometimes
right.
those individuals have kind of an understanding in their own personal journey as to why they weren't supposed to remember. Maybe it would have veered them in a different direction or whatnot. But so you started getting into healing in all these things. And did it, doing those things, getting involved in that side of life, did it change you in any way? Did it open you up to different things? I'm curious how it affected you.
Yeah, I would say it had changed me because, like I said before, I was living for what I thought other people wanted or how I should be or how I should look or do. And then now, and maybe it's just part of getting older, I'm like double the age I was at my car accident now. So maybe that's just part of it. But yeah, I just want to live for myself and make myself happy and do what I know to be right and true for me, where I wasn't that way before. And I just try to be a good, kind person, think of others, and not worry too much about what other people think about me anymore. Because that was a big one. I always worried about what people thought. Like even today, the old me wouldn't have come on here today with the surgery and the band-aid and everything. Like the old me would not have done it. I would have canceled on you and not care. But
Wow.
me, I'm like, well, this is me. Like people can, understand or not.
Yeah, well,
So
probably
I would say
people.
yes, that's changed me in that way.
I was gonna say people probably didn't even know until you just pointed it out. I mean, now they
Well,
know.
that's okay.
No,
It's
absolutely.
okay.
And I get that. And I think some of that does come with aging and finding that caring about things like that doesn't really lead us anywhere. It actually just breaks us apart more. And then you start to kind of
Hmm.
grow and figure out who you are. So that's just part of the human experience, of course. But it looks like you're still on your spiritual journey from.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I don't know if it will ever end. I mean, the rest of my life. I mean, it's just something that is part of my life now. And yeah.
Do you practice any of this currently? Like, do you practice any type of healing or anything? Have you tried to incorporate it in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it for my work or anything, but like last week I went to two different things in 1 week. I mean, it just depends on time and how much time I have, but when I can do it, I love to go do different things if they pop up wherever.
Have you have you personally had any spiritual experiences that kind of make you question things outside of, I mean, you had the accident, but anything that you've never shared or that you'd want to share, anything that was kind of a little bit different than your norm? I've had people pass in my life, I've had signs, things like that. I've had some really odd things come up, um, even recently. So I'm curious if you've had anything like that or if that's not something that you've experienced.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've done all kinds of different meditations and things. I've been to different intuitives and psychic mediums where my family from the other side has told specific things that there's no way she would know,
Hmm.
very specific, and so I could feel the presence of that family member with me. I'm very sensitive and intuitive myself, so and I've done shamanic journeys that have totally changed my life. I can say that there's some that have not been that great, but I've done some that really changed me where I see past lives. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I've seen signs I find hearts all the time, like rocks shaped like hearts.
Yeah.
So I know that's like from my angels or guides or whatever. I mean, I probably have over 100 of them where I find
Oh,
all the
wow.
time. And so, so yeah, all different kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah,
Probably too many to name.
I had a past life regression, and the oddest thing was like I'm like super male. Like I'm a guy. I'm a guy's guy. Like but with sensitivities. That's the way I would describe myself, right? So in one of my past lives I was a woman, and they had me I was talking like a woman. I was feeling like a woman. I looked at myself. I could visually see myself. I thought I was hot. I was looking at my, yeah, I was like, wow, like I was really attractive in this one life. Like I was like this Greek woman from the 1600s or something. And I was like, holy smokes. I was like a trophy wife. And that's literally what I was. I was married to a rich man, and I'm talking like a woman in it, and I'm acting. And I remember when I came out of the meditation, or out of the, not the meditation, the hypnosis, I was kind of like, did that just happen? Like I was embarrassed, you know. I was like, I can't, because I'm just not like that. Like I don't act out that way. Like I don't, even in acting, I would have trouble trying to act like a woman, if that makes sense. So to do that, it really blew my mind. And then on top of it, I told him the name I had, and then I researched it, and it was a popular name for females in Greece in those times.
Wow.
And I have no history of Greek myth. Like I don't know anything about Greek history, like nothing. So that was a mind blower for me. So I don't know if you
Yeah.
had a similar thing. Was it just one past life regression kind of thing you did, or?
No, I've done several. One they told me I had it's been a while ago now, but I think they told me I had like cerebral palsy and just couldn't I couldn't move around a lot, and I was very limited and stuck, and it was back in the olden times. And then there was another one where I could see that I was a female and I had a male, like a Native American, and I couldn't, he was drowned. Like they threw him overboard in the ship, and I couldn't get to my love. And that one really resonated with me because I've had troublesome, relationships, but so all different kinds. Really a Native American presence with several of them. So
Wow. Was that during under
yeah.
hypnosis? Were you under hypnosis during that time? Or was that a psychic
No, those
reading?
were just meditations or just
Okay.
some people that I went to for past life regression. They told me their experience, but since some of them I actually saw myself.
Wow.
So just
So you
all
have
different ones.
so you haven't been hypnotized into seeing a past life regression yourself.
I would not say that. I would say that I did a meditation where I saw one myself and I knew
Mhm.
what it was, but it wasn't for the purpose of past life regression. It just came to me, and I just had a knowing of what it was.
Wow. So you say, speaking on that, you say you have a knowing. Do you obviously had, I'm not saying you had a different belief system back in your 20s, but I don't think it was your main focus, it sounds like at the time. It wasn't the thing, you weren't walking
Correct.
around and you were living your life. Is your awareness of who you are and what you are become stronger now? Like, do you have a stronger belief system now through going to healers or doing all these different modalities?
I would say yes, I have more of a strong faith of God, however you want to look at the word God for people. It's different for everybody, but yes, where before I grew up knowing there was God and everything, but I didn't really have a sense of how that fit for me. And but now I know for sure that God and the universe has my back. I mean, for sure.
Mhm. And you probably see now with the things that happened to you that they were more of a wake up call, whereas during those moments you probably didn't feel that way. You probably were like, why did that happen to me? I'm just assuming. I shouldn't assume, but sometimes
Yeah,
it
no,
takes a
you're
while.
100%
Yeah.
right. I went through a bad depression. I wish I had died in the wreck. Like
Wow.
I didn't want to commit, but I was like, why did I live? Like I shouldn't have, and I didn't want to be alive.
Hmm.
But so yeah.
Isn't that
But now I
interesting?
see it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's interesting that you surviving the wreck questioned why you survived. You know, that tells you a lot of where you were in your headspace at the time. And so that is healing in itself because that means you have to do some work. Like if you're thinking that way and you didn't even have the experience to give you that. Like I could understand if you would have had the experience and you went over and it was loving and you were, sitting on under a tree with a bunch of your spirit guides, like something that would have really made you want to stay there, but you don't remember it. You came back with this feeling of why did I stay? Or maybe the memory's somewhere in there too. Like we don't know, right? There could be something in there that you can't recall, but you came back with this sadness that you were still here. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think sadness more for like why it was kind of a pity party at the time too. Like, why me? Why this happened to me? I'm a good person, you know. And but now looking back, like I said, it could have been so much worse that I almost see it as a gift because now I have this awareness and I was okay and it wasn't that as bad as it could have been. I mean, it wasn't great and it wasn't fun and I wish I didn't go through it, but like now I have a whole different perspective on it than I did at the time. But I mean, it was hard and I was young and you
Yeah.
know it's just part of learning and growing. But
Did you find people around you understand your newfound beliefs or feelings towards spirituality? I question that because sometimes like, I'm wondering if people around you in your life held the same ideologies of what we are, or were they more religious or more, there's nothing after this life? Like, did you find a struggle with that at all, or did you feel alone in it, or was there people surrounding you that supported you around that?
um like at the time or now or
During
both.
during all the healing times, like since the after, when you in your late 20s, I guess up till now, have you felt
Hmm.
supported?
I would say yes and no. Like people don't understand it that aren't going through it, which is normal. But a spiritual awakening is something you have to do it on your own. And luckily there are people that can help support that have been through it, you know, if you find the right people. But in my immediate family, they're supportive and loving, but they don't really know what to say or do, or you know, they don't know about it. And that's not what they were taught and things like that. Plus, I'm from a small town, like in the country, and back 20 years ago. I mean, it's a little bit more prevalent now, but people didn't talk about stuff like that, or you know, and I had
Mhm.
never heard it really growing up. So I would say a little bit of both. But then once I found a community of healers and people that understood, and you know, I went to counseling and things like that. Then yeah, so I found some support and community through those things. But then other people, no, they're like, "What are you talking about?" So you
Right.
know, plus I'm pretty private and shy, so I kind of don't
Hmm.
didn't want to be judged. Now I kind of don't really care as much anymore, you know.
Right.
So that was different. But so it's been, like I said, a progression over the years. And
Yeah. I asked it because, I talk to different people and I'm talking to you and I can already sense your energy. I can sense the way that you grew up living. I don't like to use the word standard, but things were just standard. Like things were just normal. Your life was just normal. So a lot of people who are just going through the normal day to day, they're just going through life. They're going through college, university, or just working toward, they're partying with friends. Like just everything's just kind of like I'm just going through the stages of life. There's those people. And I would put you probably around in that category more because then I talk to people who are literally seeing dead people at 3 years old. And they're talking to the animals and they're seeing spirits come out of animals when they die, and so their awareness of life is going to be completely different in their teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Like everything's gonna be different for them. And so to talk to someone like you is actually somewhat interesting too, because you get to see the two sides and how here you are still going after your spiritual journey, even though you didn't have all those other things. So I just find it fascinating. And there's probably a lot of people listening that are just curious. They're curious people. People who follow the soul inspired are seekers. They're seekers of knowledge, seekers of truth. And I don't think we're all taught everything as children, you know. I think there's some things that it does seem, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything. I'm not, but I just don't think maybe I could say it a different way. Our teachings aren't focused on things that could really help us and benefit us in our life. And I think there's things that are known. I don't, how do you feel about all that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think we're taught one way and it's supposed to be that way, but there's a whole other, realm of things that we could learn about, but we're not taught that in schools. Our families aren't taught that. So I totally agree with what you said.
With the experiences that you had, the experience that you had, you know, almost dying, are you now, do you feel like right now, and I can tell you're still seeking, but are you afraid of death? Do you have a fear of it?
I wouldn't say no. I'm not afraid of death. I would say I'm more afraid of like getting hurt and having to live here in pain and or, be disfigured and, lose a limb or be paralyzed the rest of my life or something tragic.
Mm,
Because that would be really hard to keep living like it's harder to be here alive than it is on the other side. I know that for a fact. Like it's love and joy and beauty there. Here, this is not. So it's much
right.
harder to be here. So I know that in my heart.
And I wonder sometimes too, I take in everything people say, and I was listening when you were talking about this past life that you had, where you had a disability. It sounded like a palsy, where
Cerebral palsy, I think they said.
yeah,
Hmm.
so you had this, and I wonder sometimes how much of that is cell memory for us, because I find a lot of the fears that we have, I think could be coming from past lives. Like I'm starting to really realize this myself. So like when you,
Hmm.
even the way you just described it, when you're like, oh, I'd be scared to like be disfigured or have something wrong with me or lose my, and I'm like, oh, interesting, because you could still be holding on to some of that past life. You know what I mean?
Probably.
I always
Yeah.
say to everybody, like, I'm not afraid of, everyone's always like, oh, I'm afraid of drowning. I haven't had that one. Hope to God that's, I don't want to, but it's like, it doesn't hit me right away. Whereas flying, no, like I'm like, so I have this feeling in a past life, I might have, I don't know. I feel like there's always been this feeling. No one's ever told me this, but I always feel like I was in an airplane or something during one of the wars or something, maybe World War I, and I went down, or I fell out or something. There's some kind of fear there because when a plane goes by, I still do this, and I don't even know what that is. I'm like, why am I
Um,
ducking from an airplane, right? And I've never had anything happen like that, luckily. So I don't know where it comes from, but I think we carry that, and so some of that could be where your fear is. So your fear is really around how it could happen or what would lead up to death, but not necessarily the fear of like what's to come.
no. Mm-mm. Yeah, I would agree with, yeah, that's true. Yes.
Wow.
Hmm.
Because of your beliefs and the things that you're into now, do you tend to, because you said you're a really shy person, I can pick up on that. Do you share these feelings with many people, or is this kind of something you keep to yourself?
No, I mean, I'm a pretty introverted person. I work by myself, like, so, I mean, I have clients that I work on on one, but I'm pretty private, keep to myself. I don't, so this is a big stretch for me to do these kind of things, but this is also part of like my journey of trying to open myself up and get myself out there more, be able to speak better, and maybe somebody can connect and relate to my story a little bit, or, I don't
Mhm.
know, but so yeah, no.
Yeah, this is interesting because like one of the reasons I asked one of the first questions of where your religious belief systems were before your experience. The reason I asked that is because I'm trying to get an understanding. I'm trying to gauge an understanding of the person I'm talking to, being you right now, and what you believed in before. Did you have a belief in God before the accident?
I did, but not in the way I do now. It was different.
It was more the God on the throne in the clouds, like or like the religious stuff
Yeah,
we're taught when we're kids.
yes,
Okay.
right. The just, yeah, God, but not a real understanding or a connection to that.
What comes to your heart when you feel God now? What does that mean to you?
That means to me now, my belief, which I don't know what, other people might frown upon it, but my belief is that we are all one of God. So I'm like a little piece, a little fractal of God. So that's why I have to take care of myself and love myself as for the collective, not only for me but for how I treat myself is how I treat others, and how I treat others is how I treat myself. So whatever you put out into the world is what you're going to get back, and I believe that that's part of God, that we all are connected. And so yeah, that's kind of what I believe.
I studied religion and things like that when I was in university and stuff. so many times they'd be talking about the basis of each religion. And I'm not knocking religions here or anything, big disclaimer to anybody tuning in. But so often I would see these areas of the religions that completely corresponded with another one. Like they were the same thing, they're just being said in a different way. And
Right.
I started me I was like, it's just a different religion, but it's the same thing. We're all saying the same thing. And then when I looked into the spirituality stuff, yes, there's some differences for sure. There's definitely some differences, but at the core, a lot of it is similar. And so,
Yes.
I think it would be a beautiful place someday in this world when everyone kind of comes together and has a better understanding of what we truly are. And that's kind of a hope, I guess, for me and a
Yes.
dream for the human race at some point. Um,
Yes.
you said you also work with people. It's totally different than what you're talking about though, right? Like you do different kind of work. You don't do work in the spiritual realm, or do you? Do you do around healing or any of that kind of stuff?
Not in a traditional sense, I guess. But I feel like I use it, but people don't know I do, I guess.
Okay.
So I do nails, and I do like facials and waxing and skincare and pedicures. I actually trained with a lady from Toronto. I love her, and she has a North American School of Podology that I went to Toronto and trained with her. Um, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But so I work for myself. I have my own spa, and so yeah, it's quiet, it's relaxing. I care for my clients. I take care of them like physically,
Mhm.
but also I'm like their counselor. They talk to me a lot about their
Yeah.
whole life. And so I feel like I use it in that way, but they don't really know it.
Yes.
Or maybe they do. Um, and so yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, and I would agree. I'm a music teacher. I run a private music school and teach and coach. And hopefully none of my students are tuning into any of these and they hear these tidbits, but I feel the same way. I mean, I think I counsel and help them, and I think they do the same thing for me. It's kind of a mutual thing that goes back quite a bit back and forth. But I think that
Yes.
anyone in these roles where you are working with people, you're in a teaching role. It's just this because you're listening. Same when you ever go to a haircut and you're sitting there and the hairdresser's cutting your hair and you're just like blah, 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 and you're just saying all this and they're kind of they're giving their insights and all this stuff. We're all doing this stuff, right? We might just be
Yeah.
doing it in different ways. You don't have to be sitting at the top of a hill, have people come up and you give them healing. Like it's not, not that there's anything wrong with that too, but we're all doing our own part. So that's important.
Yeah.
So I know you said you just kind of started talking about your spiritual growth and your spiritual journey. If people want to connect with you, is there a way they can connect with you?
Oh, well, I have a website because I also started just writing children's books. That
Wow.
my spiritual awakening has sort of led to that as part of trying to heal my inner child and work on things like that. So my website is onemamasheart.com. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all of that. But for my children's book.
You're writing children's books. What are the children's? I didn't know this. See, you would definitely are a shy introvert because unless I ask the question, the information doesn't come out. So that's fine.
Exactly.
That's absolutely fine. So what are these books surrounding? Is it just messages for children, or what is it? What's the premise of the book writing?
So I started it not on purpose. I wrote it when my daughter was two. Just like words came to me, and I just felt like you should write this down. So I did, and I never had the intention of sharing it with anybody because again, I'm private, and I just thought, oh, this is for us. And um, so that's when she was two. She's now nine. And over the years, I've got the nudge that like you have a lot to share. You should write. And I'm like, no, nobody cares what I have to say, or all those negative self-talk that we have. And I'm like, no, I don't. And then over time, I thought, well, maybe I do. And when my daughter was little, like my favorite time was to read to her at night. It was like my favorite memories reading books to her. And then I thought, well, I have a book and maybe people would enjoy that with their kids too, or like my message. And so I got the idea to get it published. And so it's about her and her little security blanket when she was 2 and our cat. And so it's about like anxiety and comforting yourself and kind of gaining independence as a little one because there's a lot of scary things in the world when you're growing up. And so that's kind of what that one's about. And then I have a second one that's not quite out yet, but it's she co-wrote and illustrated it because now she's 9. And so now we're on this journey together, but it's been super fun, but it's also been to help heal my inner child through the experience of writing. So
Wow. So she's involved in it at this point.
at this point, yeah, the second one, she actually did all the illustrations for it. It's about our chickens on our farm, and it's more of a silly, fun story. So
Oh, I love that. That's so cool.
yeah,
So that's
thank you.
onemama's hearts.com. So you just have the one daughter that if you just had the one
Yes, I
child?
just have one daughter.
Yeah. How's that been? Is that having an only child, has that been a journey in itself?
Yes, I wanted to have lots of kids, but that did not work out for my life. So, but now that she's 9 and we have a busy life, I see why I only have one because she's a lot to handle herself. She's a
Yeah.
wonderful kid, but she's a lot. She's super creative and so yeah, she's just the joy of my life.
Oh, I love that. I think it's funny that I wore this then today. I got my Papa Bear shirt on. So I have a 2-year-old, I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. So I started young. So I have three
Yeah,
kids, but the
you're
2-year-old
busy.
definitely keeps me on my feet. Um, so as soon as you said 2 and now she's 9 and she's doing that, that's neat when you can get your kids involved in some of the work you do because it kind of it leaves a legacy there. So that's really interesting. So um
Thank you. I'm super proud. I'm super proud of her.
yeah. And you guys, so you're saying people could go there. There's a way that they can find a way to contact you that way. That's the biggest thing, is it?
Yeah,
In case people want to,
yeah,
in
and it's
case
one
people are
mama's
interested. Sorry, go ahead.
heart, not hearts, onemama's heart.com. But yeah, I have my website. The paperback book is on Amazon, but the hardcover, which is my favorite, is on my website only. I'm trying to get it out there more, but I'm just started in this journey. So yeah, I'm on social media. That's my website. People want to contact me or my email or whatever's on there.
Oh, okay, so it was one mama's heart with just heart,
Heart.
right.com.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure that that's in the show notes and everything. One of the last things I always ask everybody, if you've mentioned that you've seen some of the shows, and I always try to kind of just get an understanding of what comes to you, right? So we're all trying to get through this life. We're all trying to just make our way through. And I think we're all trying to do it by impacting. I just don't think some of us know it. But I'm curious what you believe would be if you were to think of what would the main reason why we come here be?
I believe that we are here to experience life through love, um, which unfortunately a lot of people don't have that or don't get that. But um, so love, learning, learning a lot from others. We're here to connect, connect with others. Human connection is a big one. So learn, love, connect. That's what I believe, and just have experiences. I mean, that's what some of them suck, some of them are not fun, but that's why we're here.
Yeah, and I think to sum it up, I love how you said that. I think to sum it up too, you said some of them aren't fun. Getting in a car accident isn't fun. Going through
No,
the different thing, going through the different things that you that continue to go through are not fun. And it's weird. I've been through enough of my own not fun moments as well. And what's interesting about those moments is I think that's where we learn the most, as tough as that is to hear. I don't know why that is. I think if we could all figure out a way to continue to learn and grow without having to go through those moments, maybe we would even go through less of those moments, because sometimes I wonder if our higher self says, hey, you're not getting it. I'm going to get your attention. And I don't know. I can't confirm that. I'm just here questioning and seeking as well. But do you believe that? Do you think that there's something to that?
I mean, I wish we could do that without it, but unfortunately, being human, we are stubborn. We are, very dense and in the physical realm, so we don't have that higher awareness. Hopefully we
Right.
can get there eventually. I don't know, but I had a counselor tell me one time, you can't go around the pain, you have to go through it. That's the only way. Um, you can't, but a lot of people go around, they try to drugs, they try different things to distract, but you have to not numb yourself and you have to go through the pain, and being a human, that's part of the experience. So will we ever get out of that? I mean, it'd be cool if we could. I don't know.
Right.
Your guess is good as mine.
Yeah, I think too, though, like I think it's the same sense where people are always suggesting meditation and finding time in your life to slow down, breathe, feel what you're feeling, take a nice salt bath, whatever it might be. Something that's gonna like calm you down. Because I think if we start listening to ourselves, then we start getting those messages, and maybe that'll prevent some of the things that we have to go through. I don't think it can prevent anything, everything, but if we can soften it up a little bit, I think that's what we're all aiming for. So that would be my encouragement for everybody, from what I keep getting from a lot of people who've had some spiritual experiences. So. Thank you so much for sharing everything today. This has been amazing. Like I said, every conversation kind of goes in different directions. I didn't want to dig into too much of your info from the beginning. I'm glad I didn't because we were able to kind of walk through it together. But I encourage the audience listening, if you've gone through similar hardships in your life, to look to different ways that you can heal. And seems like you've been doing that and you continue to do it. So that's been amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate talking to you.
Thanks so much. I usually turn to the camera and say, please continue to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much again, Ashley, for being on the show today.
Thank you.
So